video, that is. Thank you to Tim Horatio, who's currently in Japan. So there we go. The lives some people live, hey? So good. So today we are concluding our vision series. Hopefully you've had a great time learning more about what the vision for this church is. I think it's been pretty important given how many new faces we've seen in recent months. It's just been mind-blowing to see how many new people there are in this church. So if you are new today, we want to welcome you especially. But we have been going through our vision. We've been looking at how we as a church, as Portlife, bring life. And in week 1, we had a look at how we seek to know. Week 2, we looked at love and the overflow of knowing and loving. Today, I'm talking about how we serve. Know, love, and serve. And even if you might not be on a team or in a position here at church, I believe that every single person here serves in some way, shape, or form. And there's a lot of attitudes I think we can have when we hear that word serve, or when we hear about serving. There's certain things that can jump into our mind. We can serve grumpily. We can serve begrudgingly. If you've ever been to a business or something like that and the person serving you, you can kind of tell they don't want to be serving you. They'd rather be at home in bed or something like that. We can serve nonchalantly. We can serve passive-aggressively. There are so many different ways that we can serve. But at Portlife, and they're all just negative ones, obviously, that I'm mentioning, but at Portlife, we desire to serve passionately. We want to know genuinely, we want to love radically, and we want to serve passionately. And as I say that we want to serve passionately, I wouldn't be surprised if someone here, maybe many people here, you're almost starting to cue a little bit of an eye roll, ready to go. Because I've been in churches before, Tash knows what I'm talking about. I've been in churches before where, the person gets up and they're talking about how, we've got to serve passionately, or using other words like that. And really, what they're doing is giving hey, you need to look happier when you serve at church pep talk. Hey, you haven't been looking super happy when you've been serving at the till on cafe, and we need some more smiles on those dials. And so they're really trying to, get us motivated to look happy for looks, really. But that's not at all what I want to do today. And that's not what I think serving passionately is actually about. I want to tell you why I believe that serve passionately is such an important value. And in a nutshell, the reason I think it's so important is because I'm actually passionate about serving. I think we should serve passionately because I am passionate about serving. And the reason I'm passionate about serving is because I believe that serving is not just something we do in a team on Sundays at church. I believe it's a core part of our everyday discipleship, the way that we follow Jesus in our everyday life, everywhere. And I believe that engaging in serving is actually essential if we're to understand our own unique purpose in God's kingdom. And so while serving in church is key and is extremely important and is something we obviously want to happen, there is so much more to this value that we've got of serve than simply trying to make you serve more at church. There is so much more to serving in God's kingdom than just what we do here on a Sunday. And to show you what I mean, I want to look at 3 big questions about God's plan for serving. So hopefully you're ready to come along on the journey. The big question number 1 is, who do we serve? It's very important that we know who we are serving. And some of these things are going to seem a bit obvious, right? But I think it's still important that we break it down. First and foremost, we serve God. We don't serve people first and foremost, we serve God first and foremost. A guy called Paul, also known as the Apostle Paul, wrote a letter to the Roman church in the 1st century and AD, and he said in Romans 12:1, "Therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship." Now, when Paul was writing this, he's writing to, as I've just said, he's writing to a church in Rome. Rome is the capital of the ancient empire at that time. It is a very diverse culture. And people in that church have, therefore, extremely diverse ideas about what true and proper worship looks like. They have all kinds of thoughts, all kinds of ideas. Some people would think, oh, it's just when we have music and we sing psalms. For other people, it might have been, it's just when supernatural gifts are operating, when there's prophecy, tongues being interpreted, when there's healings, when there's miracles, that's when worship is happening. For the Jewish crowd, it might have been the animal sacrifices and things like that, the sacrificial system when they traveled to go to Judea to go and see and experience that happening. But what Paul does is he writes into that really diverse culture, that culture with really differing views on what proper worship might be. And he doesn't say any of those things, even though they weren't bad at the time. He instead says, no, worship, true worship, starts with giving your body, therefore your life is what he means, to God through serving him. True and proper worship is about giving your body, your life to God through serving him. He wanted to show them that a living and ongoing sacrifice of our life is much better than a dead sacrifice like the animal sacrificial system, but also is more important than just a temporary sacrifice. When we worship in music, we worship temporarily. The music part of the service right now isn't happening. We're doing something else. And so that's kind of stopped. That worship part has stopped. And other parts of our worship may kind of be here and there and stop. But our life lived as a living sacrifice to God is ongoing and constant. And we know that Paul is not just, like he says the word body, so it can kind of get, I guess, misunderstood a little bit. But we know that Paul is talking about serving God here in Romans 12:1, because the rest of Romans chapter 12 is all about how we serve one another and how we serve others. In fact, Romans 12:11, you might have seen it up on the screen before, says, never be lazy, but work hard and serve the Lord enthusiastically. Serve the Lord enthusiastically. So he said, make sure you are a living sacrifice, present yourself. Mic swap. You've heard of a mic drop, but not a mic swap. There we go. So he says, you be a living sacrifice to God. And then, is that better? Is that working okay? All right, very good. It says, be a living sacrifice to God and for God. And then goes on later on to say, serve the Lord enthusiastically. Now, that word enthusiastically in other translations is fervor. Serve the Lord with fervor. And it's a Greek word, zeo, which when I looked it up, pretty much what it means is it's a picture of a pot bubbling over with heat. So where it boils to the point of bubbling over. And it's not meaning anger. It's not meaning like a negative boiling over. It's a boiling over in enthusiasm and in passion and in wanting to do whatever it is that we're called to do. And so if Paul's really wanting to communicate to his audience and therefore to us, if we want to truly worship God, we will serve him. That is our true and proper worship, is to serve God. Now, other deities, other gods, particularly at that time, but even still today, can draw people away from communities. Following some gods, some deities, particularly in the first century, but even still today, can maybe have this, I guess, this idea of you need to exit your communities, exit certain areas of life and actually just focus on the people that are like you. But the difference with Christianity and the difference that we see with God is because God so loved the world that in serving him, he leads us to actually therefore serve the communities we find ourselves in as well. He doesn't say, hey, you need an escape plan for all your communities. You need to get out of your family. You need to get out of your workplace, all those kinds of things. No, he loves the people in those communities. He loves those communities. And so he actually says, go into those communities and serve me. And so we serve God first and foremost, but subsequently we serve our communities. And your communities can be anywhere that people are really around you. Common ones are your workplace, your school, friendship groups, family, sporting and other clubs and organisations, your local church, of course, goes without saying. And these communities can be organised, not organised, it doesn't really matter. There was a group of about 200,000 people in a Taylor Swift community in Melbourne just last week. You know, these are communities. They might be just temporary. They might be fleeting. We can still serve in some way in those communities. So who do we serve? We serve God, and we serve any communities that we find ourselves a part of. The second big question is, how do we serve? We know who we serve, but how do we serve? And I mentioned that word before, that Greek word zeo. It's talking about bubbling over with enthusiasm. We know that our kind of tagline is serve passionately. But what does that actually mean? And when we kind of sat down to flesh this out and figure out what serving passionately looks like practically, we came up with this tagline, be the difference. That's what it looks like to serve passionately. And you may notice I've got the t-shirt just to really prove the point. Be the difference. So when we're thinking about how can I serve God, how can I serve my communities, you can answer yourself. You can think about, well, I just need to be the difference. And there's heaps of biblical, mandate for this. There's heaps of biblical support for being the difference in communities, and that is what God wants us to do. In fact, you may remember that Jesus taught us to be salt and light. Salt of the earth and light of the world. To put the Jesus flavor into the communities that we're a part of. To bring out the brightness of Jesus into the communities that we belong to. Maybe you've gone through drive-through before, you've really desired some hot chips. Is anyone here a hot chip fan? I love hot chips. I'm intentionally not eating them at the moment to punish myself for something. And I'm like just seeing how long I can go without hot chips, and I'm struggling. It's been a struggle. I'm trying to make it to Easter Sunday. It's not a Lent thing, just decided for zero reason whatsoever. Anyway, but I'll tell you what, there would be times, particularly when Hungry Jack's started doing like the $2 medium chips or whatever it was. Oh man, so good. It'd just be like any excuse I could to just, I've got to go to Port Adelaide. Oh, there's Hungry Jack's. Oh, $2. Awesome. And $2 doesn't feel like much. When you do it 100 times, it starts to add up. You can't pay your power bills, then you've got a problem. All those kinds of things. So anyway, we would go to, me. It wasn't Kirsty. I don't even think you can eat them. But I would go to Hungry Jack's and I would go and get my chips. And I'm really getting off track with just thinking about chips now. It's like come into my head and I'm like, whoa, I miss chips. I'm getting a bit shaky. So I would go and get them. And I tell you what, the thing that makes me really grinds my gears is when I pick up those chips. I've been looking forward to those chips. And I tell you what, on Easter Sunday when I go and get some chips, if I go and get those chips and I pick one out as I'm driving off, if they are not salted, I'll throw them out the window. I might drive back around and throw them. No, I wouldn't do that. That's not being the difference. But you know what it's like, don't you? When food is not salted, salt is the difference between food being desirable and food not being desirable. Really, the seasoning. Light is the difference between a house often being seen as desirable and not. If you go into a dark, dingy house or dark, dingy room, people are like, oh, this doesn't feel good, right? Because light is the difference. Salt is the difference. KFC are really bad at not salting their chips adequately, just chucking it out there. Always order extra salt when you go there. And then they put like the whole truckload of salt on it. It's like, there's no in between. Anyway, salt is the difference. And I could give a lot of biblical examples of Bible characters who were going about being the difference. Jesus is the obvious one. There's Paul, there's Peter, there's all these people. But I don't want to do that. I want to give you Portlife examples of people being the difference. One time, it was after our Vision Sunday last year, and after Josh and the elders had released the new vision, and I had a young adult contact me in his mid-20s, and he had been really struggling at his job because he was being teased for his faith to a point where it was actually starting to really get him down. Began to really hurt him. And there was this injustice element for him because he's like, am I just being teased because I'm a Christian? Would this be the same if I was from a different faith? Like if I was Muslim or Buddhist or something else, would this still be happening? It really got to him. And what he really wanted to do was he really wanted to lash out at the main person who'd been essentially bullying him in his workplace. He wanted to get them fired. He wanted them to suffer, essentially. And we can all resonate with that, right? Even if you don't put your hand up for it. You know what it feels like when someone wrongs you and you're like, man, I really want them to suffer for what they've done. And he called me and wanted to chat through some options. And I wish I could say that I gave him some really wise thing, but I didn't. I just kind of heard him out and let him kind of, soundboard some stuff. But towards the end of the conversation, it was like all of a sudden a light bulb went off in his head, and he said, Nick, I know what I need to do. I was like, oh, okay. And his whole demeanor changed. And he said, I need to be the difference. And I'm not saying that because like I'm not making this up. That's literally his words. And he said, I need to be the difference. Ultimately, if something's going to change in this environment, it's got to be me, because it's not going to be them. I need to be the difference. And so he followed the workplace bullying process. He did the stuff, like the professional stuff that he needed to do, but he didn't seek revenge. He didn't seek retribution. He didn't treat that person like dirt. He didn't fight hate with hate. He treated the person with dignity. He sought reconciliation. He was the difference in his workplace. And I was blown away by it. It ministered to me. And at your workplace, you can be the difference in many different ways. You can be the difference in empowering others if others don't. You can act ethically if there's unethical behaviours going on. You can seek reconciliation with colleagues like this young man did. You can honour your boss when other people are trashing him or her behind their back. There's so many different ways in your workplaces that you can be the difference. Just recently, there was a family that moved to this church. I don't know if they're here today, but and they were putting their kids into the school here at Portside. And on the first day of school, one of our youth girls went up to one of their girls and said, we're going to be friends. This girl didn't know anyone outside of her siblings that were going to the school. And you know what it's like if you have to go to a new environment, new school. You feel insecure. You feel awkward. You don't know, is this going to work out? And they went in there, and our youth girl said, we are going to be friends, and I want to get around you. And I saw them hanging out together from the very first day. They were hanging out together, and this girl was just getting around this other girl. I'm not using names because I don't want to embarrass people, but it was just amazing to see that. And the feedback I got from that situation is that girl that our youth girl had reached out to and got around, she said, this is the first day at a school where I haven't cried. That girl was being the difference. In friendships, our friendship communities, Kirsty and I were very blessed to recently be able to buy a house here in Adelaide. So you are stuck with us now, because we are not moving again, ever. So, famous last words, no, but we're not. So, but you know, we'd actually arranged for some, to have removalists. We were moving, not the Thursday, just gone, the one before that. And had someone reach out to me and say, if you don't ask me to help you, I will be offended. To the point where I said, does that mean I should cancel the removalists? Because I don't want to I didn't want to put people out. The last time we moved here in late 2019. People helped us with that. And then we had to move in 2020 again because the people sold the house that we were renting, and people helped us with that. It was on like the weird COVID weekend in 2020 in November, where it was like we were meant to move on the Saturday, and then it was like you're not allowed to go outside on Saturday. And so then we had to move on the Sunday, and it put everyone out. Felt really bad. We didn't want to do that again. We had a removalist. It was going to cost a few $1,000s. And this couple actually said, nah, we want to come and help. And they came, they helped us, not because we asked. It was on a Thursday. It's the most awkward day to do a house move. They took the whole day off, both their works, to come and do this, and moved. It took about 12 and a half hours. We were moving back and forth. We literally couldn't have done it without them. They were the difference to us on that day. The difference between a lot of stress and what was actually ended up being an okay day. And you know what? It's not just them. It's many more people over the years to us from this church community have brought us food when we're sick, have helped babysit for us when we're ready to throw a kid out the window, have literally come around and mowed our lawns and dug out weeds from in our driveway area simply because we were either too busy or too stressed, or we just didn't have it in us or whatever, and they just wanted to come and bless us as friends. Not because I'm a pastor or anything like that, just as our friends. And just so many different examples. People in friendships, we can be the difference in the way that people have been the difference to us. At what some of those things were not big things, making a meal, those kinds of things. Amazing. There's ways we can be the difference in our family environments as well. I don't usually like to use us as a positive example in sermon stories, but I was really proud of my wife, Kirsty. Late last year, I'm always proud of her, but late last year, her sister was going through a particularly tough time and made some pretty poor decisions and was kind of reaping the reward, the negative reward of the decisions she's made. And if you know Kirsty, you know she's not the kind of person that really wants to sit and listen to you drab on for an hour about your problems. She would rather hear like 5 or 10 minutes and be like, all right, this is what you need to do, right? She wants to get down to business. And I was blown away because I would get home and she'd be on the phone to her sister for sometimes 1, 2, 2.5 hours. And I reckon in that space of time, she maybe got 10 minutes of talking time. The rest was listening time. And I'm sure there would have been like almost wanting to pull my hair out moments so many times. Like as a pastor, I'm a decent listener. I would not want to do that with her. But 2 hours of listening. And then over time, and this was like 2-3 nights a week for several weeks on end. This isn't something she's going to go, oh, look at me. But this was happening. And I was like really proud of her. And then she was able to slowly but surely bring in some challenge and bring in some direction, but not just going, this is what you need to do. She was there for her family member. And she was the difference in that time. No other family members wanted to listen. No other family members cared. But she did. We can be the difference. And it inspired me to want to be the difference in my family in that same way. In sporting clubs and other clubs, I know there's people in this room, 1 or 2 in particular that I'm thinking of, but again won't name, that in sporting clubs will go and just set an example of Jesus. Be salt and be light in their sporting club or their interest group. Not by being a pushy church person and being annoying, but actually just being not ashamed of who they are. Not ashamed of the fact that they're a church person and believe in Jesus and being ready and open. There are so many ways we can be the difference in our community. And so many of you, all of you, in some ways are probably already doing this. But maybe don't even think about the fact that, oh, that's what I'm doing. You're being a living sacrifice to God when you do that. When you be the difference, every time you be the difference, big or small, you are being a living sacrifice to God. And in all our communities, we don't need a title to be the difference. You don't need to have some title to fulfill God's call. In your workplace, it doesn't matter if you're the boss or the intern. In your school, it doesn't matter if you're a prefect or in year 6. In your family, it doesn't matter whether you're the oldest child, youngest child, middle child, brother, sister, mum, dad, grandparent, auntie, uncle, you can be the difference. In the church, it doesn't matter if you're senior pastor. It doesn't matter if it's your first time here today. You can be the difference. No matter who you are, you can be the difference in your communities. You can be salt and you can be light. You can be the Jesus difference wherever you are. So how do we serve? We be the difference. And the final question is, why do we serve? Why? Other than the fact that God says so. Well, first and foremost, the main why, again, we start with God. We go, well, Jesus first served us. And Sally looked at how God first loved us last week. And Jesus, from that love, then served us. Philippians 2:3-8 says, don't be selfish. Don't try and impress others. Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourselves. Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourselves. Yes, don't look out only for your own interests, but take an interest in others too. You must have the same attitude that Christ Jesus had. Though he was God, he did not think of equality with God as something to cling to. Instead, he gave up his divine privileges. He took the humble position of a slave and was born as a human being. When he appeared in human form, he humbled himself in obedience to God and died a criminal's death on a cross. You know, if someone has $1 million debt and they can't pay it and you come along and you pay that debt for them, you've given them much more than $1 million. You've actually given them life. You've given them freedom. You've given them a new start. You've given them a second chance. And that's what Jesus did for us, for every single one of us that chooses to put our faith in him. There is no greater act of service than when Jesus laid down his life, bearing our sins, my sin, your sin, in his body on the cross. When he was crushed, tortured, and executed, that I might not only become free from sin's penalty, that is a life of shame and an eternity of judgment, but have relationship with my Creator restored again. A relationship that I would never be able to mend on my own, of my own volition, of your own volition. We needed Jesus, and he gave up the comfort of heaven to come and be here and die for all of us. Jesus offered his body as a literal sacrifice to God for us. And so in light of God's mercy, as it says in Romans 12:1, that's kind of the part that I didn't highlight, but it starts with, in light of God's mercy. What mercy is it talking about? It's talking about the death and resurrection of Jesus. The fact that though we were guilty, we were not punished because that punishment was put on Christ. Grace is favor given that's not deserved. Mercy is punishment not given though deserved. In light of God's mercy, we are to do the same, be a living sacrifice, not die for God, but die to self so that we can live for God. And so we serve because Jesus first served us. But secondly, serving unlocks our purpose. Romans 12, it's a real Romans 12 kind of day. Romans 12:6 says, in his grace, God has given us different gifts for doing certain things well. And then Paul goes on to list a whole bunch of gifts. I didn't want to list those because I don't want us to fixate on those right now. But if you are interested in doing a gifts course, I do that. I am doing that in, I think, term 4 at Breakout. But as you serve, these gifts that God has put within you, these gifts and motivations, they begin to come out. They begin to come to the forefront. Your strengths, your weaknesses, the things you find easy, hard, the things you like, the things you don't like, these things begin to come out as you serve. And God has designed it this way on purpose. He's designed it that as you walk out his plan, you discover your purpose. As you walk out his plan to be a living sacrifice, you discover your purpose. And he wants you to know the purpose. It's not like this secret thing. Like, oh, I wonder if they'll figure it out. It's like, no, I've put it there to be figured out so that you can go and run with what your gifts, talents, and abilities are and go and do it in serving in a way that works and in a way that fits with your motivations and your, the things that God has put in within you, your gifts and talents and abilities. So serving God and our communities brings those things to the forefront. And this is why, if I can digress for a little bit, this is why I'm so passionate about the junior development program here at Portlife. Myself and Sarah Wilson, who was our former kids pastor, kind of set this up, not really knowing what we were doing about 3 or 4 years ago. And the junior development program, or JDP, is the youth serving program here. Young people join it in grade 6, and then they get a certain amount of responsibilities and roles on Sunday that they get rostered in. And then in year 7, they get some more. And then in about year 8, we start to have conversations with them about, okay, what do you actually like? What do you like doing? Of all the things you've tried out, all the different areas of church that you've given a go, what did you like? And what did you not like at all? What things made you go, yes, I'm on that today? Because they're probably starting to line up with your gifts, your talents, your abilities, your motivations, those kinds of things. And then over time, they completely exit JDP and just become normal people serving on a team that are just young. The reason I love JDP is because these young people are learning how to be a living sacrifice from grade 6. Sometimes year 5, we've had that happen as well. But not only that, they're also being developed as leaders. Some youth now on Sundays are even training other youth. We've got some serving roles in JDP and in the church where the whole purpose of that is to train another young person, but it's filled by a young person, if that makes sense. And we've actually extended that this year to Life Youth as well. We don't have JDPs at Life Youth, but we have a helper team that has joined our youth team, and it's young people from year 8, 9, 10 that have joined the youth team, and they come along early at about 6 p.m. Youth starts at 7, and they get involved with the prayer meeting, and they hear the devotion that we have in our team meeting, and they pray for each other, and then they help set up, and then they stay until about 20 past 9 or so, helping pack up in the evening. And it's just been amazing to see the growth that is within them. Not only that, we have a youth band where it's mainly youth on the band now. When I first got here, it was kind of young adults wishing they were still youth on the band. You know those young adults? Woohoo, I'm young. And it's like, no, you're not. You're out. Sorry. You're either a youth or you're not. I should know. I'm like the 31-year-old youth pastor who's graying and slowly balding. Like, if anyone can kick people out of youth, it's me. So we've got a youth band that's mainly youth. We've got, on Friday night just gone, we had young people praying for young people, in our service. So I really loved Tim Kidney shared on Friday night, and he talked about a bunch of things, but one of the things he shared in the devotion too was around how there's no junior Holy Spirit. The same Spirit that's in me is in you. And so at one point he was kind of preaching, and we had some prayer time, and like I walked in, I was getting the pizzas, and I looked in, and like the whole youth ministry was praying for like 2 or 3 kids. It was awesome. And then he goes, all right, who here has a healing need? And a few people put their hands up. And then he said, righto, go pray for them. It wasn't like, hey, I'm going to pray for you. It was like, you guys can go pray for them now. We've just prayed for you to be baptized in the Holy Spirit. Now go and use it. Let's go. And they did. And it was awesome. And we already have some testimonies coming out of that, which has been fantastic. So there's so many great things happening with youth serving in this church and youth getting involved. And what I really want to tell you is that this is not tokenism. This is not tokenistic. We're not going, oh, we want to be lovely and play church nicely and get the young people involved. I don't want to do that. I actually want young people to contribute. I want young people to learn their calling in God. I want them to get to know and hear God's voice from a young age so that they can respond to him, as I've had the pleasure of being able to do in my life in a similar way when I got involved from a young age. Our youth are being the difference. They're being taught to be the difference. And I know I'm labouring on this, I apologise, but I just to kind of prove the point today, I just wanted to let you know the youth that are serving across the service today. So these are just the ones that are on just today, unless some of them are sick, which I haven't checked. Scarlett Jackus was up here singing. She's in year 8. You're not going to want to clap for every single one because there's too many. Emiliano Parker is up there on lights. He's in year 8. Levi Lane is training him. He is in year 10. He is also on lights today. Kian Landman's on video and photography. He's in year 7. Maddie Davis is a barista today. She's in year 10. Ben McKenna is also a barista, year 10. Sophie Parker is on the milkshakes and ice cream manager, training another young person how to make milkshakes and serve the ice cream. She's in year 10. Anya Marcus is making those milkshakes and being trained. She's in year 6. Sophie McDonald is a Green Monkeys junior assistant today. She's in year 12. Varun Smith is a Green Monkeys helper today. He's in year 7. Lila Sorokin, Green Monkeys helper, year 8. Hannah Jackus, Kids Life helper, year 6. Sarah McKenna, Kids Life helper, year 7. Harmony Jackus, welcome team, year 6. So, and that's not all of them. That's just the ones that are on this week. There's 15 youth this morning. Some are in the JDP program still. Some have graduated and are just serving on teams, as I said about many of them. But I love kind of when we go on a youth camp and there isn't this thing of like, oh, thank goodness the youth aren't going to be at church this week. They're annoying. It's more like, oh no, the youth aren't going to be there. We've got to figure out who's going to be on these teams. And my heart is that like, it would not bother me at all to look around and go, oh, there's a youth person running, AV. There's a youth person running cafe. I know there's logistical issues with that. There's certain things young people can't do just due to age and policies and those kinds of things. But capability, I don't believe there's anything a young person can't do. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank Pastor Josh for allowing this youth serving culture to happen here. Because, when youth are learning and they're getting involved from year 6, mistakes are going to happen. That's what happens. I mean, it's the same when adults are learning, but, when youth are learning and they're so young and they're just finding their feet, mistakes happen. But the thing is, we are not a business. We're a church. We're a disciple-making organism. We're a leadership-creating, leadership-developing organism. And we have a mission from God to see people raised up and develop so that they can develop others. And I'm really thankful that Josh, when we came to him with this plan of going, can we try this out? That he didn't go, no, that's going to make things not be, look good enough. The mistakes are going to be too detrimental, blah, blah, blah. He said, yep, I think that's a good idea. And he's backed us in. So thank you to Josh and the team for doing that. And the last thing on youth serving, again, no, I'm ranting, apologies, but it's my passion area. If you see a youth serving, can you please encourage them? Can you get around them? You have no idea how much your words mean to young people. You think about it. I'm sure there's so many people here, you've got like a childhood wound where maybe a trusted adult or a teacher or someone said something to you and it was negative and you can probably still remember it to this day. Can I just ask you, don't be that person to our youth. Be the person where they remember, wow, that person who I don't even know came up and said, hey, that's awesome. Thank you so much for what you're doing, and encouragement. We are often so specific with our criticism and so broad with our encouragement. Why don't we flip that and specifically seek to encourage not just our youth, but each other, and maybe keep our discouragement to ourselves. So just to close, as the band come, we serve God, and who do we serve? We serve God and our communities. And there are many communities, any community we find ourselves a part of. We serve them passionately. That's how we serve, by being the difference. We want to be salt and we want to be light. And we serve because Jesus first served us and because it unlocks our purpose. But just as these guys are getting up, and I have gone over time, apologies, but I just have secret bonus question. Number 4, which sounds better than just saying I have 4 questions from the start. What if I don't feel passionate about serving? What if I just, I'm trying to do all the nice things, but I actually just don't feel the passion there? And one of the verses we have talked about in youth a lot, which gives me intrinsic purpose, is Colossians 3:23-24, which says, work willingly at whatever you do, as though you were working for the Lord rather than for people. Remember that the Lord will give you an inheritance as your reward, and that the master you are serving is Christ Jesus. In the world, people generally do things for money or for pleasure. But sometimes when you're serving your family, your workplace, your whatever community, sometimes the money and the pleasure is not going to be enough for you to motivate you to actually want to do that. Maybe you're just like, man, it's hard work. In those times, it's important that we remind ourselves, as people who want to be the difference, that I'm working for King Jesus, not for manager, old mate, whoever it is. Not necessarily even for my family. I'm working for Jesus. And whenever we serve anyone in our communities, we're actually storing up a reward, a treasures in heaven. And we don't know what those treasures are. We don't know what that's going to look like. But we know that we are doing it for Jesus. And one day you will know, because you'll see him face to face. And there will be not one thing that you have done to be the difference that he won't have seen. There will not be one thing that you've done to be the difference that he will have ignored. He will know every single one. So when we're not feeling passionate, remember we are doing it for Jesus. This morning, we're just going to sing a couple of songs, but the first one is we're going to be singing gratitude. And I think it's a really important opportunity for us to go, hey, Jesus, thank you that you first served me, so that you have then given me purpose and a hope and a future that I might now go and be the difference and serve others. So I would just invite you to stand this morning as we sing, and would you reflect on that? Thank you.